All right. What's up, guys? To the people that are hearing me right now, whether it's through Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I'm here with the first episode of Revelations brought to you by your host, Ray Martinez. And for today's episode, I got my two friends from elementary school from Multicultural
Yes,
Magnet.
sir. Way back.
Got G, and I got Pedro, the Brazilians. Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up? What's up, Ray?
What's going on, Ray? How we doing?
All right, cool. All right, well, for today, we're gonna be talking about like my process and what I went through, um, and what got me, like to church and to serve the Lord. And it was a pretty long and humbling experience, and it taught me a lot, and it's really changed me as a person. But this whole entire podcast is gonna be, various topics that we're gonna be speaking about. But today we're gonna be talking about, my process and what I went through. So it really started when I was a teenager, and as a decision my parents gave me, I stopped going to church. I think I was 16, and they gave me the decision whether I wanted to go to church or not. So on Sundays, I would sleep in and my parents would go. By the time I woke up, my parents were just coming home from church. So I separated myself at around 16, and I just started being a teenager. I started hanging out with my friends. I started doing whatever, I wanted. I was all about having fun, just regular teenager stuff. Uh, and and we got to high school, and I remember this is when I first started to struggle with this.
Before you jump into the whole story,
Yeah.
I just want to make clear to the audience what do you identify as for your religion?
For religion, I identify myself as Christian.
Okay.
Um, that's also like another topic that I go into, like, religion or relationship, with God.
And what made you choose that religion? Was it something that you were at first, as soon as you heard about it, you had faith, or was it kind of like your family pressured you into wanting to be a Christian, so you just adapted the ideology of Christianity?
Yeah. So for me, really, I grew up in that kind of environment, and I grew up seeing, like miracles, and I grew up, like hearing about the congregation praying for one another, and seeing, people's faith actually, work. And so I grew up in that kind of environment because my parents, were in that environment also. And so that first day of high school, I remember it clearly. I went to my first period class, which was French, and then it was second period, and I had English. And for some reason, I just felt mad nauseous. I felt so nauseous, uh, and I just hate throwing up. As a little kid, like whenever
Oh, bro,
I throw
I
up,
hate throwing up too.
bro, I can't
I
do
had a
it.
phobia since I was young of throwing
Yeah.
up. I would literally just get scared.
Yeah, that phobia still existed for
It's
me.
a valid phobia.
Yeah.
People are scared of throwing up.
Yeah, I
It's
would
violent,
I
bro.
would choke up, and I felt like, I can't breathe. And
You
so
see these white boys just throwing up on command after drinking, but
yeah, I know.
I wouldn't. I would throw up
Mhm.
once a year.
And that's scary still. Like, I'm still thinking this could be that one time a year.
Yeah.
So then it was second period, and I just felt mad nauseous. So I went to the bathroom thinking I was gonna throw up, and I stayed there the whole period. After I heard that bell ring, I ended up going to third, and then I got on with my day as normal as any other day.
So what do you think caused that stomach pain?
I really,
Nausea?
to this day, I really still don't even know.
'Cause you are lactose intolerant. So didn't you maybe
Yeah.
eat something?
So at that time, I didn't know I was lactose intolerant, and then
Nah, could have been that.
yeah, it happened so frequently that whole freshman year, that whole sophomore year.
Wait, so just to confirm, this is how you like found your faith? This is the beginning?
Yeah, this is the
It
beginning.
starts with that story.
It starts with, yeah,
Okay.
because from that first day, it happened the whole year. I would skip English class because I would be in the bathroom thinking I would throw up, and it was right after first period. I would just get mad nauseous.
So your body got accustomed to feeling nauseous at whatever 9
Yeah.
a.m. in the morning.
Yeah,
That's tough.
it, and then it happened again sophomore year. It would happen first period, and then junior year, it kind of went down, and then senior year it came up again a lot. And I remember everybody would be like, "Yo, Ray's here. Oh, he's gonna leave after first period. Like, why is he
I
even
do
here?"
remember that. I do remember that.
And most of the time, yeah, I was skipping just because I didn't want to be in school at the time. But other reasons was because I would have my head down and I would just feel nauseous, and I just felt like I was trapped. Like I didn't want to be in school. I just had to go home and deal with that nausea at
It could
home.
have also been maybe some social anxiety. You have
Yeah,
social anxiety because that happens to me a lot too. Whenever I would go into a big public gathering or whatever, and I would get like nauseous, and I would realize I'm having like a panic attack or
yeah,
something.
yeah. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. And for me, I had that phobia of nausea, and so every time in my head, every single time I felt nauseous, growing up in that church environment, but at the time voluntarily not going, in my mind I would just pray to God and be like, "Yo, if you can just please heal me this one time,
Yeah.
I promise I'll go back to church and I promise to serve you." And that was every single time, and I remember it so vividly that I would literally pray and it would be the same prayer, "Heal me," and I'll go back to the ways that I was raised in.
You know, before you do move forward, remind me of that right there
Yeah.
because I have something very similar that happens today to me that I want to get back to.
All right. Uh and so it continued, senior year. Um and then but senior year is also when I had this eating disorder where the nausea would just overtake me and I just couldn't eat normally. When it came to eating food, going out with whether it was friends or family or just one other person, I could not swallow. I could I
Pause.
had
Yeah.
I
Continue.
could not I could not swallow correctly. I would, take two bites of my food and I couldn't get it down. I felt like I was just going to bring it back up. So I told people, "Yeah, I'm not hungry anymore," or "I lost my appetite," or "I'm full." But in reality, it's just because I couldn't eat anymore. So by the time, I got in my car and I drove off, I would be eating in my car because I was by myself. Or I would wait till I got home because I was by myself and I'd eat it, normally.
Yeah. So I think there's maybe a little bit of some social anxiety in the
Yeah,
mix too.
um yeah, I had anxiety, and I still do. Like I'm on medication right now. I'm
And
taking.
not a lot of people do know they have anxiety. Because I didn't find out I had anxiety until like my second semester of college. And it was crazy the way I found out. I was literally like about to pass out in the bathroom. So it's yeah, it's a lot of people could relate to that.
Yeah, and it's scary because it takes a toll you know on the phobia that I had. Like, it's using the phobia I had, to put even more, to make me even more anxious
Yeah.
in the moment. And so, we graduate high school, and it's like, yeah, everybody's like, yeah, we finished high school. And and at the time, we were going out. We were like, just going out to places and, just doing regular teenager stuff. Um, and it was probably like some of my worst moments. Um,
What age range?
like probably like 17, 18.
Okay, so that's like that's like one of some of your prime years
Yeah.
of teenage years.
And so last year is when I really came back to church, because let's say 2 years ago is when I was really starting to get attacked. So January of 2018, I remember waking up one day. I woke up fine. I go to the bathroom, and out of nowhere, like, I go to the bathroom and it's just pure blood coming out of me. And
Like you're throwing up blood.
nah, like, it's coming from my rear end, like,
Oh
just
man.
blood. And it was just straight up nothing but blood. And then I called my mom, scared. I'm like, well, like, why is this happening to me? Like, what could have caused this? And I was like,
Sorry to interrupt you, but that sounds scary as
yeah,
hell.
yeah. So I called my mom, and she's like, "Do you want me to take you to the ER?" And I'm like, "No, hopefully it'll pass." But then I go like two, three more times, and it's still just straight up blood. I am like crying. I'm freaking out, and so I'm like, my brother was home, and I'm like, "You need to take me to the hospital. Like, I don't know what's going on with me." He takes me. They take my blood pressure and all those vitals, and they tell me my blood pressure or my heart rate is too high, and that freaks me out even more. I feel like I'm gonna black out in that moment, and that's when my nausea also kicks in. So I had like four different things going on at once, and I thought it felt like I was gonna die really at that moment. Like I was just filled with panic and fear. Um, and I was just by myself in the bathroom, thinking I'm gonna throw up, thinking I'm gonna black out, and I'm just crying. I'm crying. I'm crying. And my parents get there, and my mom is literally talking to me and through the door. She's like, "What's happening? Are you okay? Tell me how you feel." And I'm just crying. I couldn't answer her. She opens the door. She comes in, and she's inside the bathroom with me. And then my dad comes in, and she's like, "All of the things you've led that led up to here, all those things that you've done has come to this moment because this is a test. This is literally something that's happening because God is calling you to come back." She's like, God doesn't punish people, but he allows things to happen in order for you to realize and open your eyes, and so you can understand his calling. And I really understand that, and I really believe that. And so at that moment my mom was like, "I think it's time for you to reunite yourself with God." And so she started to do a prayer to accept him back into my life. I did the prayer, and I stayed in the hospital for a few days. I was in the ICU until I got all of that blood out of me. I was there for maybe 2 3 days, and I had the youth leaders from my church come visit me. Since I was there as a kid, they always knew me, so they came to visit me and they came to talk to me. And they talked to me and they were like, "This is a calling. This is a test, and I'm glad that you've accepted the Lord back into your heart." And by the time I got out of the hospital, it was time to go back to church. And so from January to March, I was back in church, but then I slipped up again. I slipped up, and then I started removing myself from church again. I started skipping, once. I started skipping, twice, and then I started going back to my regular routine.
So you basically like relapse type.
Yeah, I basically relapsed. And so again, that year, I was, let's say, I was attacked again. Every night before I went to sleep, I would get nauseous. I was filled with fear and anxiety, and it would not let me sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night, waking up my parents, telling them I feel nauseous, I'm scared, like, and I'm just crying. And my parents are telling me, you know, this is where your faith needs to be active. This is where you need to pray. And I spent those nights, kneeled down by my bed, praying, crying, praying, playing, my playlist, and just listening to the music, and just worshiping and worshiping, because that phobia was trying to take over me. That fear wouldn't want to let me go. And so it got to a point where it lasted months and months and months, and I couldn't handle not being able to sleep. I couldn't handle not being able to eat like a regular person. I wanted to be normal again. I wanted to be healthy, and I lost a lot of weight. I was about to reach 90 pounds at that point, and I was normally I was 120, 125, which is still not a lot, but for my height and my age, it's normal to be that way.
Yeah.
So, every time it happened, it freaks me out even more and more, and it happened constantly every single day until I had to go back to the hospital and get checked out for what it could have been. So,
So do you? My bad for
yeah,
interrupting,
no,
but
you're good.
do you know, was this like do you know if it was a condition, illness, like?
So that's what we weren't getting answers on. The first time I went to the hospital, they still didn't give me an answer. I went to St. Vincent's, and they still didn't give me an answer for a reason. So yeah, it was every night that I was being attacked, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I go back to the hospital, and they asked me, "Have you been to the hospital this year?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I had blood coming out of me, and they never gave me an answer as to what caused that. Uh, and so I'm back in the hospital, and they decided to do an endoscopy and a colonoscopy on me, and I've never had any kind of surgery done, so it kind of frightened me. And this is where my faith was really tested. I'm going through the whole process and procedure to get that done, and my mom is by my side, and she's like, "You don't have to worry, because the Lord is by your side." And so I go through the process, and I just remember the startup. They put me on their sleeping gas, and then I knock out. And by the time I wake up, I'm being rolled off, and my parents are on my side, and I don't know what happened. And by the time I woke up, I'm just talking to my parents. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I made it out alive. I've never had something done like this." And the first thing I say to them is like, I just start repeating, thank the Lord that I was able to get out of this. Thank the Lord that everything went as planned, that, I was able to get through it. And I just start saying, God is good, God is good. And to them, that makes them happy, because, they always want the best for me. They want what parent doesn't want the best for their children? So they wanted to see me, worship the Lord. And after I got the results, they said, that they found nothing, that, nothing is really there. Like, there's nothing in the way. And so I'm like, okay, but still no answers, which frustrated me. Still no answers as to what could be causing my constant nausea, my constant fear, which is when we went to the possible solution that could have been, talking to a psychologist. And I went for a little bit, and they told me, well, it sounds like you could have anxiety, you could have social anxiety, which is impacting you and making you think that you're gonna feel nauseous again every single day, like you did in high school, like you did in your room at night. And this is when I actually started working at church. I started playing the drums. I started making t-shirts. I started learning about the sound equipment so I can be in the back. I started learning about how to stream, like to their Facebook page. I was involved with the youth, and I would still get nauseous every night, but I would still keep my faith. I'm like, every time I would pray, I would just be like, I have my faith. I'm not gonna, separate myself again, and this, I'm gonna keep praying and keep worshiping until this is gone. And to this day, it hasn't happened for months. And I've been able to eat again. I've been able to sleep again. I've been able to eat, and I've gone up in weight. And I still continue to be in church, and I just feel like God really did a miracle with me, and He really, healed me of my anxiety, of my phobia, of nausea. He really healed me of not being able to eat. And he did all those things because I maintained my faith throughout those months that I was being attacked with anxiety and fear. And, you know, those times I prayed, I actually meant when I said, if you heal me, I will worship you. If you heal me, I'll come back to church. And those are the times that really counted because it really meant. And to this day, I've been healed. I feel normal again. And I owe it all to the Lord because my faith was tested and my faith stood. I put my faith over my fear. And now I'm standing here to this day without anxiety, without any eating disorder, gaining weight again and eating normally again. And I just owe that all to the Lord because he's the one who healed me. And, how can you repay someone for that? As a kid, when I grew up in that environment, I've seen people's faith be activated, and that's how my faith was activated. I remember this one night in the hospital after the youth leaders left to talk to me, and I was like, oh, when I get out of this hospital bed, I'm going straight to church and I'm getting to work. I have so many ideas. I was excited. And that night I download the Bible app for the first time. And the Bible app always gives you a verse of the day. And the first verse of the day that it gave me was just a clear sign that the Lord was calling to me. And this is what it was. It was Revelations chapter 3 verse 20, and it says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me." So when I read that, I'm like, the Lord is knocking at my door, and I'm listening to his voice. I'm opening the door to him. I opened the doors of my heart for him, and he entered. And now he lives within me. He lives aside me. He lives everywhere that I go. And he knocked on my door, and I answered. And because I let him in, and because I put my faith over my fear, he was able to heal me. He was able to change me as a person. He was able to restore me. He was able to strengthen me physically. He was able to strengthen me in my faith. He did a miracle with my life. He removed my anxiety. He removed my fear. He removed my phobia. And I just owe that all to him. In this text, Jeremiah 29:11, it kept showing up for me because I knew that the Lord had a plan for me, and I know that he wanted to use me. And this is what the text says. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." So every time during those nights of fear, I would just repeat that text over and over because I know that the Lord had a plan for me to use me. And that just kept me going. That just kept activating my faith. And during those prayers, I would also mention Romans 10:13, which says, "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved." When you shout, when you speak with your mouth that Jesus is God, that Jesus is Lord, and you accept him into your heart, he will save you. He will give you eternal life. And it says that in the truth, which is the Bible, which is what God spoke, which is what Jesus spoke. God spoke the world in existence. God spoke us into existence. So he says, call on the name of the Lord and you will be saved. Declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. He will give you eternal life. And if he can do the same thing with me, he can definitely do it with whoever is listening to this right now. Whatever it is you are going through, whatever it is that you think you can't get through, shout out that Jesus is Lord. He's done a miracle on my life, and he can do it in your life. And I just think that that's amazing. If you put your faith over your fear, if you just activate your faith, that you just have faith in God and you accept him, that he will do a miracle in your life. If you're going through some sort of pain or some sort of sickness right now, I hope this text helps you. Isaiah 53:5 says, "But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed." He was beaten on the cross, he was whipped on the cross so that we can be healed. He went through all of that so we can be healed. He went through that process because he was thinking about us. If you have faith in whatever you pray for, he will listen to you. He listened to me. He listened to my parents. He listened to the whole congregation that was praying for my healing. Mark 11:24 says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." And I just kept activating my faith over and over again. I did not let go of my faith, and here I am standing to this day. I am in a worship group, with my drums, every day improving. So I'm in the worship group drumming. I'm in the back. I'm a leader of a ministry at church, the media ministry. I'm the leader of that. I'm in charge of that ministry, which includes the sound equipment, anything that has to do with technology and media. I'm in charge of it. I'm the leader of it. And I have so many ideas that I still need to do, which we are doing to this day, which is this podcast, because the Lord has a calling for me. And even 2 days ago, for those of you who don't know, I was involved in a very bad car crash, which we can cover another episode. And I could have lost my life then. I could have lost my life there too. But by a few inches, by just a little bit of velocity, I was saved from getting decapitated right then and there. But the enemy is always out trying to stop the Lord's plans. He's always out scheming. He's always out trying to disrupt you, trying to distract you. And we live in a corrupted world. We live, in a world where bad people live, bad things happen. And with God on our side, we can always pray to him, and he answers us, and he gets us through that. And I hope that you've taken this testimony of mine to see that it's not only just with adults, it's not only just with kids. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been or what kind of situation you've been in. It doesn't matter. He can do big things. He can do miracles. So if he can do it with me, he can also do it with you. Thank you for listening to my testimony. I don't know if you guys want to add something to that.
Yeah, man, I have. Well, first and foremost, man, like, congratulations. Like, that really sounds like an awesome journey you went through, despite all the difficulties you had to face. But just the fact that you got to an end goal that you're happy with, like, congratulations with that. But a few things, a lot of the things that you did mention, I actually went through quite a few similar things myself. But I don't think I'm quite where you're at in terms of your faith.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, before the elementary school that I actually met you, I went to Columbus, and the way you described your social anxiety, the fears, the symptoms that you had, I had literally everything at the school. I remember walking up the little ramp. It was Columbus. I forget what street it's on, and just seeing all those people just made my stomach hurt. I didn't even want to touch the school breakfast because I just literally had no appetite. My stomach always felt like it just had like something in it, and I just always wanted to get out of there. I hated that school, and I don't know. When I went to multicultural, it was different. And over time, I just learned to open up, and like that just went away on its own. But one thing that really stood out to me that I wanted to cover in this talk is when you said like when you'd be facing your challenges and you'd ask God, hey, like, help me this one time, and I promise I'll go back to you. So I have acid reflux, and you guys always tease me about it, and it's pretty bad. Like sometimes I, like literally just one bite of a meal, and the food just gets stuck, and I have to go to the bathroom, and it either goes down or it comes out, and it's bad, but it's manageable, whatever. But at the times that it's really bad, like I always remember, the first thing that I always turn to is faith, is religion. But the thing is that I just feel guilty sometimes because I ask for help, and then I don't really follow up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like I only ask for help when I need help. I
Yeah.
never ask for XYZ when things are good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one thing that's held me back. I and it just makes me feel selfish and not true to the belief itself. So that's one reason why I say I'm not where you're at. But I'm Brazilian. Almost all of Brazil is Catholic, Christian Catholic. So
Yeah.
I grew up in a very similar household that you did. I was also given the opportunity to go to church, and a lot of the times I opted to not go because I wanted more sleep. I wanted more, I don't know, video games, cartoons. This was when I was younger, of course. And nowadays, like, unfortunately, church isn't even like a part of my routine.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do remember is being older now. Probably like last year, the year before that, I did go to New Life Church in Trumbull, and just being older and being able to understand like the pastors are freaking hilarious. Like I was never so interested,
Yeah.
and it was pretty fun time, but I just never grasped onto it as much as I think I'd like. And I feel like I've had a few signs in my life too, but I think I just never acknowledged them as much as you may have up to this point. And that's not to say that this is the end. Like I still don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing is like I always have questions, and that's one thing like our friend
Yeah.
group always teases me about. I have too many questions. They say like, oh, you should be a lawyer or whatever. And a lot of my questions growing up have been answered through science, which I appreciate. I appreciate humanity and what we've been able to do. But the questions that I can't answer, the ones that I don't have an answer to, often are answered by religion, and that's where I really respect the idea of faith. But like I said, I just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But I that's not me calling it quits. And because I did grow up in like a Christian Catholic household, if I were to go to a religion, obviously it's gonna be that first. I'm gonna explore that. But I don't think I'm there. But the one thing that religion just catches my eye most is just the idea that everything in this world, everything in space, everything in just the universe is so perfect that, in my opinion, just I really don't think science can explain it.
Yeah.
And that's really what catches me like most. It's just like there's got to be something larger than us. And there's been times where like just like you'd be going through your hardships, and for me it was my mom. Like she would come and she'll pray for me. There's been times that like my acid reflux, like the food would literally be stuck in my throat for like an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and like I would just sit there, hungry, not being able to eat, and it's tough. And like it's crazy because sometimes my mom would just come in, she'll pray for me, and just like that, boom, it's gone. And I was just like, it always like was amazing.
Yeah. It takes you in shock.
Yeah, but like
Takes
as
in
strong
shock.
as that sign was, like I still didn't like, I didn't see it as a sign
Mhm.
then. Like at the moment, I was just like thankful, and that's why I feel selfish. Like once it's over, like me asking like God for help,
Yeah.
that thought goes away,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what bothers me.
Yeah, and I
it's,
forgot to mention that every time I was in school and I felt nauseous, and I would pray, just like that.
yeah,
No more nausea. I would continue on and pay attention in school every single time. After the same prayer,
yeah.
just like that, it's gone.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy. Sometimes I think maybe it was just a coincidence, but once it happens over and over,
Yeah.
you start to question that.
Mhm.
And as strong as those signs may have been, I don't know. I haven't acted enough on it. I still question a lot today, but I'm young. I still have time for plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty in my life. But it was crazy hearing you say all of this because I've gone through such a similar experience, but I just haven't reached that end goal yet.
Yeah.
And who knows what the end goal is? Like I said, we're young. We're still developing ourselves as young men, whatever.
Yeah.
But just like thank you for sharing. Like that was pretty cool.
E-
And I've had some other stuff, but I lost it. Hopefully, it'll come back to me as we
Yeah.
talk here. But
E-
that was awesome.
Even after, the whole being ignorant and rejecting, like God, he was still able, to accept me.
Oh,
I still had him in my mind. I still knew who he was. I still knew what he was capable of, and I still kept rejecting him. But in the end, where I stand now, he accepted me even after all those times
yeah,
that I said no, no, no. He still accepted me. And in our age group, nobody wants to go to church. No one finds, church, fun. But and I thought the same thing. But it's different, once you start understanding. It's different once you feel motivated. It's different when you actually have, you know, Jesus living within you. And that whole entire church experience, it's it turns around. It's not what everybody thinks. You know, for me, I remember we used to sleep over at Kevin's house, and like Saturday going to Sunday,
yeah.
I had to wake up because my parents had to pick me up to go to church, and I'm like, oh. Now
Like you wanna go.
I want to go.
Yeah,
We'll be playing soccer at Madison. I'm like, yo, I only have a couple
yeah,
minutes, and then I gotta leave. It's because I want to go. That whole experience is different for me now,
yeah,
and and there's an explanation for that because once you actually go and you accept him, the Holy Spirit actually activates within you and makes you want to go and makes you understand and makes you actually learn and makes you actually accept things there, as in you start to grow as a person and you start to grow your faith, and it amazes you and it makes you want to keep going and going. And I enjoy actually going. I went from a person who didn't want to go, who chose not to go, to now voluntarily going. My parents don't have to ask me, let's go. They don't have to ask me, are you going? I voluntarily go by myself. Even if, my parents didn't go, I'll still go by myself because I enjoy it. And, you know, if he's done it with so many people. Everybody says, yeah, I didn't want to go. And now they go continuously, continuously. And it's one of my priorities because you know, I genuinely like going, and it's been, a different experience for me. So what he did was, amazing. And, he doesn't just do it with me, he does it with everybody else. You wanted to add something, Pedro?
yeah. Yeah. So very similarly, I also like growing up, I saw it as a burden. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like I'm still there, and I'm still in that like that skeptic phase. And to be quite honest, who knows where I'll end up, whether I fully commit or I don't. I couldn't say as of right now, but and that's just me as a person. Like I said, I question everything, and religion just has to be one of those larger aspects that I question. But I always did see it as a burden. Like I said, I just didn't want to wake up early and go and
Yeah.
like dress up, be in front of all these people. But like I said, when I went to a New Life over at Trumbull, it was different. I went for my mom, if I'm being honest, because she wanted to go. She thought that it was like a way to like bring our family closer, and it really did. And it was just interesting because once I got there, like I said, the pastors, they were just so funny. They were hilarious. One of them was really young, so he was able to like really relate to like my age group. So I just felt more comfortable there. But unfortunately, that died down over time because life gets in the way. But I never saw that as a valid excuse because like there's so many people who are like really committed, and no matter what, they still go. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're in the middle of a pandemic and you go all the time. Like that's the type of like if I'm being, I want to reach that point, but I just haven't yet, and I think it's just gonna take some more experimenting. But one thing, another thing that I feel guilty of is just like within, growing up within the Brazilian community, like I said, almost everyone believes in God,
Yeah.
and by me not believing, I just felt like an outlier, and I don't know why, I'm not fully there, or it well, I I believe, but I'm just not as dedicated to like most of the Brazilian community. You know what I mean? Like, so that's made me feel like a little bit different. And like I said, I just can't answer that. I can't answer why as of right now. But the main point really is growing up, seeing all the successful people I've wanted to become like for example Neymar. You know what I mean? I love soccer. I grew up watching him. I grew up watching him grow up into the superstar he is today. And it's like he celebrated all his successes with he always had the one headband on, 100% Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't only him. It was like a bunch of people that I grew up like wanting to be like, whether that be they achieved success monetarily, or they just had the lifestyle that I want, or they did something for the greater good. And a common theme was always their faith, and like I felt like I needed to do that. But then again, this was one of those things that I felt selfish for doing it. I'm like, am I doing this because I want to, or am I going to commit myself to a faith so I can become successful for me?
Yeah.
So I'm still in that middle ground. Like I said, I don't know where life will take me, but I just wanted to put that out. I feel like if there are signs there, that's got to be one that I've realized and I've taken into account, and now it's just a matter of what's next.
Yeah. I've been in that same situation where, like, oh, if I go to church, I'm gonna have to sacrifice this, I'm gonna have to sacrifice that. But really, when I started going, I didn't really think about any of those things. I know at church, you give tidings, and tidings are like a big part of your faith. And at the time, I wasn't in the best in the financially stable best part of my life, but I still gave something, and that something, God multiplied. And judging by like what you see around here, I literally, I got blessed. God multiplied like the seed, that one little seed that I planted, that you give, and he multiplies it. And now the stuff that I used to, let's say, crave, the stuff that I used to do a lot, I don't really have, let's say, an appetite for them anymore. I don't really find them desirable anymore. And that's not something that happens from one day to another. you know it happens by just God being God. He works in you. He literally transforms you, and he turns you into an image of him. And yeah, we're humans. In this human form, we have flesh, and the flesh is always gonna want to go against what God wants. The flesh is always gonna want to sin. And you know nobody's perfect, so people slip up and people make mistakes, but there's nothing that God can't forgive. It's better to acknowledge your mistake and repent to God, what you've done, and ask for forgiveness. And God forgives. And time again, he showed me he's forgiven me for everything that I've done, for my slip ups. And he still, maintains me. He still maintains me healthy. He still maintains me safe. He still maintains me financially. And so this is why you need to put your faith over your fear. And this is why it's important, not to be religious, but to just have a relationship with God. Everything's better when you have a relationship with him. If you have a slip up, repent, ask for forgiveness, and move on. And God forgives you. And with God's mercy and his grace that he gives us, he literally, time and time again, accepts us back. He accepts us with open arms. And I've seen that, like I've had, my mess ups and my slip ups, and I have repented and I've asked for forgiveness, and he still multiplies my seed. He still shows me his mercy and his grace. And I just think, you know, there's no other way that's possible but through God. So I've been in that same situation, but those sacrifices don't really become sacrifices anymore. They just become undesirable things afterwards. I don't think about those things anymore. I don't, you know, get the desire for those things anymore. And God only does that because he changes me, and he strengthens me. And the best way, to fight against it, to fight against temptation, is to just pray. And in that text is to call out on the name of the Lord. And I did that whenever I would get tempted. And I would, pray. I would play my drums. And for me, I never thought I'd be playing drums, and now it's one of my favorite things to do. you know what's better, than serving the Lord and doing something that you're passionate about and something that you like. And every time he sees you worshiping, he receives your worship, and he gives back to you in a way that he accepts your worship, and he works in your life. He starts transforming you, he starts healing, he starts covering you in his grace, he forgives you, and there's nobody else that can do that but God. So that's why it's so important to me to have a relationship with him. I know that there's teenagers out there that they know who God is, but they just don't want to get close to him because I don't want to go to church, because I don't want to sacrifice this. And really, it's not about church or making sacrifices. It's just about having a relationship with him, acknowledging him, and just following his guidelines, following the right way to act, because Jesus came on this earth to show us the best way to act, to basically give us a guideline on how we should act. And by the time you turn to God and you start a relationship with him, he transforms all of that, and he transforms you as a person, and he changes you. And I've seen that, and you guys have seen that, because I know you guys have seen me, like, be a dumb teenager before. And you guys could say, oh, I didn't really change a lot. I'm not, like, I don't talk as much, or I'm like silent, or like I'm still me. And I still do, like, things that, like, that we find fun. And you know and God is with me, so it just makes me feel better. And overall, as a person, I feel like it just makes everyone better if they just knew about him and accepted him. So I I really suggest that you take the time to really, just pray every day. And my pastor says to me, praying is praying. You don't have to be kneeling. You don't have to have your eyes closed. You don't have to have your hands together. You could be standing. You could be laying down. You could be sitting down. You can have your eyes open. It could be in your head. It could be out loud. Praying is praying. And if you practice praying, then God will give you revelations. He will speak to you. He's spoken to me. I've heard, I've seen, I've heard, the plans that he has for me. He's given me visions, and I've acted upon them. I remember during one of my prayers, I was I was like, if you want to see me in the worship group, just give me a revelation. If you want me to do another project, give me a revelation. And when I said that, that night I had a dream of me, at church playing and going insane on the drums. I was going insane. I was like, I want to do that. And when I went to church, the worship leader came up to me and says, "Your dad is going to step down," because my dad plays drums. She's like, "My dad is going to step down. Would you like to take his spot?" And that's when I started, taking on the drums. And with the podcast idea, I remember I had somebody talk to me, and they were like, "You should start some kind of radio show. You should start some kind of podcast." And it's just signs and revelations that he gives through the praying that you do. And I just think that, that's amazing, because there's a lot of power in prayer. And, I'm an example of that. You guys see me here, I'm transformed, I'm changed. But me as a person, as you know, as the goofy guy or that likes to make jokes, I'm still him. Only difference is that I just have a relationship with God, and I abide by that. So really, there's no sacrifice to be made, but just take him into account, pray, and I promise that I I don't even promise. I know that for a fact. I know by my faith that he will do something amazing in your life. I just know it. And I have my faith on it. But thank you for tuning in, guys. I hope you found this interesting. And I will talk to you guys in the next episode.